For joining us this morning to discuss the critically important issue of bus driver shortages in our community. I first want to thank Superintendent of Schools Kevin McGowan, who's not only an amazing leader in this community in the educational space, but a dear friend and someone that I have called on for years for advice and counsel around issues involving our schools and our educational community. I'm also joined by Monroe County School Board Association Executive Director Amy Thomas, who is here in her relatively new role as the head of the School Board Association, another organization I've had a long and very, very fruitful relationship with, and we're delighted that that Executive Director Thomas is here. You'll hear from each of them in just a few minutes. Here in Brighton, in school districts across our community, and in communities across the country, there has been a significant shortage of school bus drivers. This is not a new problem, but it's one that's been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Last year, we saw the shortages so severe that some local schools were forced to cancel classes. Others had to change and consolidate bus routes or keep students on school buses for longer periods of time. We know how this story plays out and the negative effect it has on students, families, and school administrators alike. With back to school just a few weeks away, we cannot wait to make the changes we need to ensure we can safely transport our children to school. That's why today I'm announcing I've introduced legislation to allow more people to apply for bus driver positions while maintaining the highest safety standards. And I want to thank my co-sponsor from Texas, Republican Jake Elzy. This is a bipartisan effort on our behalf to address this problem. We've heard time and time again from local districts, school board association, and bus drivers themselves that one of the biggest factors contributing to the shortage of bus drivers is the onerous, repair-oriented, under-the-hood requirements of the commercial driver's license, which are wholly unnecessary for school bus drivers. And let's think about this. In order to get a commercial driver's license, you have to know how to maintain and do repairs on the engines of the buses, something that no school bus driver in the modern age would be asked to do. If there's a problem with the buses, I'm sure the superintendent and executive director Thomas can share with you. You stay with the children and maintenance people are brought out. This is an onerous request, onerous responsibility, onerous requirement. So last September, in response to the concerns we heard from school districts around Monroe County, I wrote to U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to request a waiver of this requirement. So I'm proud to say that thanks to our advocacy last year, Secretary Buttigieg and the U.S. Department of Transportation began allowing states to apply for that waiver back in January. Unfortunately, the waiver was issued for such a short period of time that the majority of states, including New York, did not have enough time to take advantage of the waiver. So my legislation would extend the waiver for a year-long period, giving states plenty of time to make the change and get more bus drivers in the pipeline. I've spoken with my partners at the state level. I know they're anxious to get this done and alleviate the burden on our local school communities. It's my hope with this change we can return to a sense of security to parents. And as someone who had children go through the school system, who took buses, I know how much this weighs, how much anxiety there is on kids returning back to school. This is one thing that they shouldn't be anxious about. So we want to provide more opportunities for bus drivers. So I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues in Congress, hopefully to swiftly pass this legislation and prevent future shortages of bus drivers. So this is an issue, as I said, we've heard a great deal about from our local partners, and it's now my privilege to introduce the superintendent of the Brighton Schools, and I know we're also going to hear from my good friend Supervisor Bill Maley, who's joined us as well. But again, I'm so grateful to Kevin for his leadership, for his extraordinary stewardship of the Brighton Central School District, and for his friendship. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you so much, Congressman Morelle. We are privileged to have your support, not just on this issue, but so many, and a deep, deep friendship. And I appreciate your kind words. And again, all that you do for our children and families here in the Brighton Central School District and throughout Monroe County, and frankly, statewide. This legislation is absolutely essential. As Congressman Morelle very thoughtfully pointed out, we need to get kids here safely. We need to get kids here predictably for families, for them to experience their educational opportunity each and every day. in a timely way, and we can't afford for that to be disjointed, for that to be really all over the board for families. And that changes a family's day tremendously when we need to make changes on the transportation side. It changes a child's day, it changes the teaching day. It is a real struggle when we can't have kids here in our schools, again, across the state, here in Brighton, Monroe County, in a timely way and an efficient way. And this legislation will help us have the drivers we need. Last year in Brighton, we experienced about a 33% vacancy rate to what we would consider a fully staffed transportation fleet. And that presents a considerable challenge on a day-to-day basis when runs need to be consolidated, changes need to be made, and that's a struggle for families and kids when they should be entirely focused on the great experience that we'd like them to have each day. We're currently looking at 14 out of our 45 positions unstaffed. I'd like our community to know that certainly will be a challenge as we start the year. We will see a system run and run well, and our kids will get to school and get to school on time, but it will require flexibility both on our part and the part of families. Our drivers and our transportation staff do an incredible job of getting kids here each day. We're so proud of their work. We need more of them, and this legislation will make it easier and more efficient for that to happen. As Congressman Morelle pointed out, this under the hood requirement really doesn't make a lot of sense. And I know we've talked a lot about the idea that for most of us drivers, when we pull over on the side of the road, I don't think we'd be under the hood having to fix something. I know that it would cause tremendous stress for my family if I was the one responsible for that. And in fact, as Congressman pointed out, that driver should be doing what they do best, which is working with the children on the bus to provide a safe environment, supervising them, caring for them. That's where their focus should be. Not under the hood fixing something that frankly we're waiting for a mechanic to come like any of us would. And so this arcane requirement being lifted through this legislation, making it more efficient for us to get bus drivers on staff, will make a big difference. I also know this legislation is well supported by the New York State Council of School Superintendents, the National Superintendents Association, AASA, and the Monroe County Council of School Superintendents. So across the board, people are saying, help us have this opportunity. And once again, it's an opportunity where Congressman Morelle has done quite a bit to help us run our schools and run them well. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on that and for the Congressman's support of this legislation, sponsoring of it. I'd like to introduce now my colleague from the Monroe County School Boards Association, Amy Thomas, out to an outstanding start as the new Executive Director to speak on this issue as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me this morning. As the new Executive Director, I just want to speak on behalf of our association. Over the past 10 years, demands on school districts, transportation systems have increased drastically. The Monroe County School Boards Association has worked with both state and federal representatives to address the severe shortage of bus drivers in our districts. COVID-19, as Congressman Morelle mentioned, exacerbated the shortage of drivers and hampered the ability to move candidates through the licensure process efficiently. One of the key components that has kept our districts from attracting and retaining drivers is the under the hood testing requirement. Congressman Morelle advocated on behalf of public schools with the United States Department of Transportation, and in January 2022, a temporary waiver of this requirement was granted by the Department of Transportation. This waiver was welcome relief for our school districts. However, the time period expired and many school districts were unable to take advantage of the benefits of the waiver. The proposed Get Our Kids to School Act will allow our districts the time necessary to attract, hire, and retain qualified bus drivers while maintaining the high safety standards of transportation of our students. Our sincere appreciation to Congressman Morelle and your continued support in advocating for a solution to the bus driver shortage. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd now like to introduce another great friend, someone I have known for many years who leads the town government with distinction. The only thing I'll say about him is the only challenge the two of us have ever had is appearing in the same picture together without my head being cut off. So, but it's a great privilege to have my friend, the town supervisor of the town of Brighton, Bill Maley.
Joe forgot the other challenge, which is adjusting the microphone. I'm Bill Maley, the Brighton Town Supervisor, and I know I speak on behalf of supervisors, not just here in Monroe County, but across New York. We work closely with our school districts on safety and other issues. And one of the things we hear both in local government but about state government is, why can't government, just common sense. We need some common sense in government. That's what we're seeing today. Common sense. It does not make sense to legislatively require bus drivers, to also be the person looking under the hood. And so, thanks to Secretary Buttigieg, thanks to Congressman Morelle, who does so much for this Brighton community, we're taking some common sense action and putting our schools and putting our drivers in a position of being able to do what they do best. Keep our children safe, drive them to school, interacting with the students, not interacting with, I don't know, a carburetor or something. Schools are so important to us. I was thrilled yesterday to read that 14618 here in Brighton was declared the hottest zip code in the United States. No small part of that is because of the Brighton Central School District that serves this zip code and this community so well. And this will help that school district do their job safely, efficiently, and I'm so appreciative of everybody that's making this happen. Thank you so much.
Thanks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Congressman, last year we saw several districts have to alter schedules as we went back to school in January after winter break. Do we anticipate seeing that again? Where is the situation with bus drivers right now in Monroe County?
Yeah, I'm happy to turn it over to my colleagues, and Amy may have talked to superintendents. I just know this is a persistent challenge. I mean, we do know that there are labor shortages in all kinds of walks of life right now. We're combating them in so many different industries. But this one is in part caused not just by demographics, but this is because of a rule that we have in place, which to me makes no sense. So I think we're going to continue to be confronted with challenges in this space, which is why I want to get ahead of it. That's why we worked with Secretary Buttigieg last year. Unfortunately, the waiver period, which I think is limited to 90 days under the existing structure, just was not long enough, and the state, and I'm sure many school districts, felt that the waiver period, which didn't cover a complete academic year, was of little use to them. So that's why this legislation would allow the one-year waiver. I'm hoping long-term to have a even more permanent solution than that, but this will get people through the academic year, and that's why I think it's such an important thing to do. But I'd certainly let Amy, do you have any comments, or Kevin, about where you are on this?
Sure. Yeah. I think Congressman is absolutely right. This will continue to be a challenge, and so I would expect that you will see similar circumstances this year. I don't think it's improved significantly. In fact, I think the labor market has only become more challenging. Remember, these are great positions for people who care about children, who can operate the bus safely, get kids to school in a dependable manner. The children in this community are the centers of our universe, our treasures. Our greatest asset are our children, and they do such a wonderful job getting them to school, and it's a job that provides people flexibility during the day. It's a great opportunity for folks. This particular requirement, though, made it much more difficult for people to get into the work itself. So I do think we will see this continue to be a challenge. I don't think there are plans currently in place where you're seeing altered schedules at this point. But as transportation routes are becoming finalized before school starts over the last couple of weeks here, you'll see some consolidations, I'm sure, in some school districts where routes will change a little bit. You'll see increased wait times perhaps for kids, varied bus times from what families are used to in order to accommodate that, all those kinds of strategies. But I don't believe there's any formalized plan that's in place. I would just expect for families to see that throughout Monroe County, New York State, and across the country. I think what happened here last year for us was our transportation department was able to make it work. There were slight adjustments all year long. This was a constant struggle. There were charters that couldn't run, in other words, for field trips or athletic contests where we had to make adjustments along the way. I think people have become somewhat used to that at this point. I think they're yearning for a time when that was more dependable and we didn't have to be as flexible in those circumstances. I think our families will be ready for that. We talk to them all the time about the type of flexibility that is necessary. There's not, again, a current plan that there is a massive change for people to be expecting. I don't want them to be anxious about that at all. But we'll see the same struggles that we ended the year with in terms of that kind of flexibility, consolidation of routes, changes in time, which we communicate to people in real time and give them as much notice as possible, but that will continue to be a challenge. Thank you.
Superintendent McGowan did a great job, but one thing I just wanted to mention as well, we do have parochial runs that we have to make. So you have the regular school bus runs, and then you have the parochial schools. So you have a lot of complicated bus runs that you have to consider. So that's one element of this as well.
Are there districts that are in worse shape than others? We contract out here first students. Others run their own transportation. Are there districts that are in worse shape than others?
In my opinion, no. I think everyone's in the same shape. We're all in the same boat right now. And trying to navigate through this is going to be something that we have to work together and use a best practice amongst the districts to figure out how to best get our kids to school safely.
Great. Anything else? Terrific. Thank you all for being here this morning. I would say go Dodgers, but you know how I feel about all that. So thanks so much. And thank all of you.
You guys mind if we do a quick picture?